Today, I am honoring Martin Luther King Jr. and all of his dreams that he had for America and the world. Before I get into that, I want to thank you for your patience. I've got a scratchy voice and a bit of a brain fog, so I'm going to be doing a lot more reading, and I can't say usually because I'm just a newbie. But anyways, thank you for your patience and grace for me. In the summer of 1968, I turned 7 years old while traveling with my grandparents. Granddaddy had a job to do in Memphis, Tennessee. He was an industrial plumber. We were there just about 3 months after Martin Luther King had been assassinated on April 4th. It wasn't until years later in a history class that I was able to understand the emotions I was picking up on as that young, empathetic girl. Fear, hate, heaviness, these were mostly new to me. I had zero knowledge about racism, hate for color of skin, or any other way that a human could hate another human. 57 years later, if I did the math, we are still a nation divided in many similar ways, and it hurts and confuses 63-year-old me as much as it did the 7-year-old. I know I'm not alone in this. I know many of you feel the same. Hi, I'm Liz, and this is my channel, Groovy Happy You, in spite of it being a little bit of a somber subject today. Did you know that Martin Luther King was a hippie? Okay, maybe not the bell-bottom, fringe leather vest, long hair with a headband type of hippie, but one of the leaders who introduced and eloquently spoke of many hippie values. He said groovy things like, "I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed." And he did groovy things. He organized protests, marches, communities of people, and drew support from other leaders. He taught us how to do these things, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Martin Luther King was inspirational for the hippie movement and values. Previously, the flags have been set to half-staff to honor the former president, Jimmy Carter, who lived his values and ethics, much like those of Martin Luther King. Both men were honorable and just, and they passionately strove to make this a better world. The time is always right to do what is right, Martin Luther King. And these men did right. The contrast is quite stark. When I think about what is happening today in politics, has been happening over these past 10 plus years, this is the quote that best sums up my thoughts. "Nothing is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity," Martin Luther King. But I digress. When I wanted to be on a different path, a groovy path, peaceful path, with integrity, honor, and okay, it's me, a sassy potty mouth. I want to be a part of the shift to better behavior, to actual freedom, and for all to live and be. I'd rather focus on people, a strong moral character, and faith in better. Today is for honoring Martin Luther King Jr., even as we remember the former president for whom the flags have been at half-staff. People of integrity, real people of integrity. And who do you think of when you think of people of integrity? Martin Luther King stated, "Life's most precious and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" And that's a hell of a statement. Jimmy Carter lived for 10 decades doing and living for others. What type of world would we live in if Martin Luther King hadn't been assassinated? I don't think we'd be in this place still filled with hate, fear, greed, and injustice. Their work is not yet complete. It's going to take more effort from all of us. I believe we can do better than follow the dictator-in-chief with a broom and a dustpan like the cleanup crew after the elephants in a parade. We are not makers of history. We are made by history. Martin Luther King. I have lived through 6 decades of history so far, growing up with the influences of people like Martin Luther King, promoting peace, love, interconnectedness, critical thinking, questioning authority and the status quo, living one's values and ethics. These concepts began in me with my awakening to the unjust inequities and inhumanity in a city I was visiting with my grandparents at 7. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King has some advice, and Jimmy and Rosalind Carter lived and modeled it too. It feels so obvious, like a door that's just been overlooked. I consider it a solution worthy to try. We must pursue peace through peaceful means. Martin Luther King. Peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. Martin Luther King. A means by which we arrive. Peace. Regardless of the hate and shitstorms of pestilence and disease, Martin Luther King and the Carters found their passion and their peace within the process of creating a better world for humanity. They chose their direction, followed their faith, and created better. They embodied peace. And I want to do groovy things in and for this world and humanity too. Most of us feel this way. The only problem is, and maybe you can relate, after decades of fighting patriarchy and capitalism, I am fucking tired, exhausted, and not well. Maybe this would have been a better lesson to have learned earlier in life, but here I am. Living within the bounds of patriarchy and capitalism are not healthy or sustainable for me or for humanity. I'm done. I choose to take a different path and make a different choice. The freedom of the individual is ultimately the freedom of all. Martin Luther King. So that's my plan. Peace, freedom, integrity, joy, faith, love. These are inside jobs, and no one can hand them to us. We choose them for ourselves. When I align with and live my truth and values, I feel at peace, and I will know freedom. When you live your truth and values, so will you. And in this way, we will grow and expand peace and freedom, beginning with ourselves and influencing outwards within our families and our communities. To live in peace and freedom, what does that look like to you? What are your dreams? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm curious. This channel and I are just getting started, and it won't usually be quite so heavy. Usually I'm that little fucking jab of sunshine right in the eye. Blessings for peace, love, health, and silliness.